opinion very brightly. This is the Food Labelling Committee in Canada and the Nutrition and Foods for Special Dietary Uses Committee based in Germany. What he's up against, what we're all up against, is a pharmaceutical industry that has a very, very aggressive business plan. And they work on the basis that their revenue stream is based on getting every single life form hooked on their drugs at the earliest possible moment. So they see the revenue stream as being from conception to death. And they see that they've got 40% of the people within their grasp at the moment in the Western world, which means that there's another 60% to go and they ain't going to stop. One of the reasons they're becoming very, very aggressive is because more and more people are beginning to realise that allopathics are not necessarily everything they're cracked up to be. And more people are turning to natural products. Here's an article from the British Times, which looks very interesting at first pass. Alternative therapy. 80% of the world's population rely on herbal medicine. 191 million is spent on complementary treatments in Britain every year. 60% of Scottish doctors prescribe homeopathic or herbal remedies. You think, wow, this is good. This is great. And it's out there. The British public are getting to see it. Although I'm not showing you the whole picture, because that was buried in this article here, and the headline screamed, "High street herbalists can offer no evidence that their remedies work." This is how the media manipulate the national psyche. They can't be accused of biased reporting because they put both sides of the argument in the article, but its headline, of course, does damage. And tucked over here, on this side here, is expert backs prescription by clinicians. And this is how they propose to take the most aggressive step to shut down the complementary and alternative healthcare industry, because no practitioner will be able to make any recommendation or prescription, because the only people who will be legally able to do that will be allopathic practitioners. Dr. Arpad Kutsai, this guy is an absolute hero, of course. This is a guy who spent 30 years working at the Rower Institute in Aberdeen, in Scotland, was an advocate of GM foods until he conducted his own research and proved that the GM foods, particularly potatoes that he was working with, caused major problems with the linings, the stomach linings in young rats. And so he went on public record on a BBC documentary programme in October 1998 and stated that GM foods were unsafe and under no circumstances should they be released into the food chain. 30 years, the guy was regarded as a leader in his field. The following day, Monsanto called Bill Clinton called Tony Blair called the head of the Rower Institute, and by noon, Arpad Kutsai was fired. And tragically, this was 1998, tragically he had a stroke earlier this year, and his wife, Professor Susan Bardosh, carries on his work and gives presentations on his behalf. This is media articles demonstrating that the British government was funding GM research despite denying that it was. This was proven. This particular government minister went straight to the offices of the Independent newspaper immediately following a meeting with Monsanto. Didn't even give himself time to integrate the discussion. This is the sort of PR that's being put out in the British media right now. Purple tomato can beat cancer, because they decided that the only way they can get the population to accept GM foods is to promote the positives. Of course, it's totally unproven. It's a total shot in the dark. Monsanto should not have to vouch for the safety of biotech food. Our interest is in selling as much of it as possible. Assuring its safety is the job of the Food and Drug Administration. That's from the Director of Corporate Communications of Monsanto. Okay. And just in case you thought that was an aberration, agricultural biotechnology will find a supporter occupying the White House regardless of which candidate wins the election. And if you look at the funding, then Monsanto basically offers pretty much equal amounts of funding to all candidates. This was from a couple of years ago. EU may be asked to ban clone farms. Well, in the January, the decision was taken that there was no requirement to identify cloned foods. In Europe right now, you may be eating cloned food, you don't know because there's no requirement to label it. That decision was taken in January 2008. You know, are we at the end? Is there anything we can do about it? Well, these guys think not. This is the Great Seal. It represents very succinctly the belief system of those who perceive themselves to be the rightful rulers of a planetary fiefdom. The separated capstone represents the knowledge and the wisdom held by the few, never to be shared with the masses. But there's a few tools that they totally rely on. And those tools are apathy, abdication, and willful ignorance. Now, by the sheer definition that you're here today, none of you fit into any of those categories. But unfortunately, we are very much in the minority. And these guys know it. But, in my opinion, they're also starting to run scared. Because they know that there is a mass awakening occurring. That people are starting to wake up to the shit that they're putting down. So, hopefully, this will work. When you find a few people like this, instead of parking your bike, you'll help them get their head out of the sand. Because you know, the way in which we change this is by spreading the word. You know, George Bush, in a meeting with the press, a dinner with the press, 2 months after he was sworn in as president the first time in 2001, he said, "You can fool some of the people all of the time, and those are the ones you concentrate on." Yeah? We are not those people. And our challenge is literally to spread that word. You know, and obviously for a lot of people, what I've presented today will cause people to feel angry, will create perhaps fear. And these are part of the process. It's part of the process we have to get through. Because you know, once we get beyond that, then we can start to think about how we make a contribution. And obviously that's very much what Peter and Gary and his team are doing. I mean, they're taking the initiative, and it's what you guys do with it. Maybe it's just sharing it with family, with work colleagues, whatever it is, whatever skills you have. Different people have different skills. There's no panacea here. Everybody has to make a decision, and it's not about forming organisations, because the moment an organisation is formed, we become an easy target for these guys. They know how to infiltrate. They know how to shut an organisation down. It's all about working individually or in small teams with people you know and trust. And the moment that somebody's behaviour gives you a cause for concern, just quietly move away from them. Leave them to do whatever it is they're doing, but you don't need to be sharing what you're doing with them. But primarily, the key issue that I leave you with, thank you very much for listening to me, the key issue I leave you with, like I said, is don't take anything that I say at face value. Educate yourself.
En dus jullie zijn gezond, vraagt Veronique, hè, van
gaat direct komen.
ja,
Dan,
dat zijn
ja.
Als ze bezig waren, hallo, dat va? Als ze bezig waren met die presenten van, oh, maar nu weet ik niet wat dat is, dat is eigenlijk super. En gisteren heb ik nog aan u gedacht. Salut, zou die eens van de navel verdwenen?
Vaccinatieschade, dan gaat u daar wetenschappelijk op aanvallen tegen hoe kunt u dat bewijzen. Dus ik heb dus een soort, hoe zou ik zeggen, een circuit gemaakt waar dat je kunt bewijzen dat vaccinatieschade echt bestaat. Dus het begint met een virus. Je hebt een virus, een virus. En je gaat in het lichaam, dat wordt gelabeld. Je krijgt een progressiemechanisme, gaat uitzien in 10 dagen en alles is voorbij. Nu, als je antivirale middelen neemt of een vaccinatie, wat gebeurt er dan? De griep gaat ook voorbij, maar je hebt een hele hoop toxine vergiften in je lichaam en die blijven dan rondgaan en dan zijn die meer vatbaar voor andere infecties. En je gaat van de ene infectie naar de andere, je energie vermindert, tot de dood als gevolg. En dat is juist het probleem. Ik heb verschillende patiënten die gevaccineerd zijn met baarmoederhalskankervaccin, waarvan er 2 dus het erg toe zijn, te zeggen, ze zijn praktisch verlamd. Eerst krijgen ze een vaccinatie, dan een salmonella-vergiftiging, dan zijn ze gezegd genezen met antibiotica en cortisone, krijgen ze terug een andere infectie en op de duur zijn ze dus totaal verzwakt en krijgen die bijvoorbeeld syndroom van Guillain-Barré of weet ik veel, en de energie gaat minder en minder en op de duur zijn die totaal verzwakt met de dood als gevolg. Dank u.
Beste mensen, bedankt voor de kennis ook mee te geven. Ik wil graag eens een oproep doen. Dus iedereen die eigenlijk vragen heeft, jullie zal even op te schrijven. Opmerkingen zijn allemaal welkom. Iedereen welkom. En eventueel ook de e-mailadressen achterlaten. Ik weet zeker dat er veel mensen nu aanwezig zijn die de nieuwsbrieven nog niet ontvangen. En we zullen graag ook ten liefst de e-mailadres op iedereen hebben, zodat we jullie regelmatig op de hoogte kunnen houden van verdere acties die we doen. Dus we gaan ook al wat dagen klaarleggen. Ik weet niet dat iedereen zijn e-mailadres achterlaat. Constructieve ideeën, negatieve kritiek is ook welkom. We kunnen natuurlijk ook buigen naar positiefs. En dat wil ik graag zeggen. Het is voor ons heel belangrijk om de groep verder uit te bouwen naar de toekomst toe. Ja, precies. Er zijn ook veel mensen die geen e-mailadres hebben. Jullie dat even door te geven aan ons, dan kunnen wij ons best doen om effectief informatie ook te verspreiden aan mensen die geen e-mailadres hebben. Gewoon even noteren waar we u kunnen bereiken en op die manier kunnen we u toch de informatie meegeven. En dan misschien persoonlijk voor mij het belangrijkste spreken over de Codex Alimentarius vandaag. Perhaps it would be best to address Scott in English. Sorry that I didn't do it in English. I think regarding the Codex, one of the most important persons as an activist to work on the Codex, to work on this issue, is most definitely Scott Tibbs from the National Health Federation. All people